Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by River, the place that I personally go to securely invest in Bitcoin with confidence and with zero fees.
We have Bitcoin that is the most resilient currency in the world that can resist to the wrath of God, that can resist to apocalypse, but we don't have the equal when it comes to communication. For us, Whole Punch Protocol is that equal, and Keet has the chance to become the communication platform for the apocalypse, and we don't want to screw it up.
For a listener that's not intimately familiar with what you guys are doing, I just want to throw out some numbers here so that people can start to wrap their head around the magnitude of what this is. Tether, market cap, $114 billion as I checked it this morning. The number that I think is even crazier to me is 60 billion in volume in the last 24 hours. And I don't even know that this was a busy, you'd have to tell me, Paolo, is that a pretty normal number these days? 60 billion in volume for just the last 24 hours?
It varies between 40 and 60. Keep in mind that after Trump, spoke at the Bitcoin 2024, the volatility on the market has been, to say the least, interesting. So it's expected to see bigger volumes in USDT because USDT has become over the years the base pair for every single other digital asset. So all the different cryptocurrency trading activities are settled in USDT for most part across the entire ecosystem.
Yeah. And this is something else that I found interesting. So I'm looking at, in comparison to Bitcoin, you're looking at a market cap on Bitcoin that's about 10x the size of the Tether market cap. It's a little bit more than that. It's $1.3 trillion is the current Bitcoin market cap. But the daily volume on Bitcoin is only 38 billion. So if we were going to compare these numbers from what's the word I'm looking for? The frequency or the turnover on a daily basis, the velocity of money, if you will. Tether, just in the last 24 hours, is 50% of all the Tether that exists has turned over volume-wise just in the last 24 hours. On Bitcoin's side, it's only 2%. And so I guess I'm just looking, because I find these numbers just staggering, because that's 25 times the difference of how much faster the money's moving on Tether than Bitcoin. Why do you think that that's the case?
Well, first of all, there are part of the market cap of Bitcoin. There are Bitcoins that are not moving since a long time. So you have to account for that. And also when I think about USDT and Bitcoin, there is a fundamental difference, right? So Bitcoin is in part used as, it's traded for sure, but also is considered the best store of wealth in the world, right? So people tend to hold Bitcoin more than they tend to hold US dollars or USDT. Also, USDT on the other side have multiple utilities. While I'm a Bitcoin myself, I think that, I believe that the world needs to go towards more and more adoption of Bitcoin for both store wealth, so your savings account, make it simple, and your checking account. I believe that we need to see, it's still very early for that. The success of USDT comes from the fact that not everyone in the world is ready for Bitcoin yet, especially for whom lives in the emerging markets, developing countries. They would exchange their national currencies for USDT because USDT represents the US dollar. And although the US dollar is not perfect, we are seeing how much dollars have been printed in last year. That was a pretty calm year, right? And nothing major happened. Still more than 1 trillion in every 100 days was printed. Still is much better. The US dollar is much, much better than the national currencies that 5 billion people on the face of this earth hold on their day-to-day lives. Think about Argentina, Lebanon, Turkey, Venezuela, that is in very discussing in the last 24 hours, Vietnam, and you can name Turkey. You can name so many, right? So 5 billion people living in countries that had very high inflation rate and very fast devaluation of their national currencies. And so the common denominator of all these communities is trying to find a better solution. Think about the Argentinian people. They have been let down from their governments across 2 different defaults, and they were on the brink of the third. So people are sick and tired to have to rely on their local government. And although, again, the US dollar is not perfect, it's much better than what they have. So what you see on the USDT side is in part cryptocurrency settlement, trading settlement, cryptocurrency like trade finance, the settlement. We are seeing a huge increase of usage of USDT in trade finance, like commodity trading by cotton in Turkey with USDTs and things like that. But also is becoming a savings account in many, many countries. And people are on-ramping from their natural currency onto USDT just to protect their families, protect their savings. Eventually, we hope, and through education, to bring these people to learn more about Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. But it's a process. In this moment, they know about the dollar, and so they are more attracted to the dollar. That's why you see these incredible turnover percentages.
Yeah, I mean, people could just look at how you guys are sweeping cash flows within the business and what you're doing with your cash flows as to what your thoughts are on like where you need to be preserving your wealth. Because my understanding is that a majority of the cash flows are being swept into Bitcoin. Is this accurate?
Well, Tether has announced in the end of the first quarter 2024, we had our attestation release, and we are a couple of days far from releasing the new attestation for this quarter. Uh-huh. So up to 15% of our profits have been put into purchasing Bitcoin. Keep in mind that we come from Tether has been very, very much discussed, right? We all know about that. We were, since 2014, everyone has been obsessed by Tether, and all the FUD, all the different discussion about how we keep our reserves.
Paolo, there's a difference between your reserves that are backing the issuance of coins and excess profits that the company has made and what you're choosing to do with those reserves. And I think that it's really important. I think this gets lost in all the noise that when a coin is issued or a stable coin is issued, it's backed by something, and it's backed by
something.
Yeah, it's backed by U.S. Treasuries, most likely short duration, because you don't want the inflation risk, is what I'm assuming. You'd have to speak to this, but then if the company makes a profit, it's stored in something. That something, I would imagine, is Bitcoin, or at least that's what I would want it to be in if I was you guys. So, can you talk to that difference in like how you think through some of that?
So definitely in part is Bitcoin for sure, right? But we started to be profitable. Tether started to be profitable 2 years ago with the increase of the interest rates. Before, the interest rates on our reserves was 20 basis points. So we didn't have so much money to invest. In the last 2 years, Tether profited around $11.8 billion. So that's why I was talking about being conservative, because we were very, very much discussed and on the mouth of everyone. Because what we took as a decision is to keep part of our profits, instead of distributing them, and becoming fatter, we decided to keep $5 billion in the company in excess reserves, on top of the 100% reserves that we have to keep on to back all the issued tokens. Just to give you a data point that will be released in the next few days, we are, between our direct and indirect ownership of US Treasury bills, we have around 97 billion of US Treasury bills as of today. As of the 30th of June 2024, was around 90 billion at the 31st of March 2024. So basically, when we get new issuances, we made this commitment to put most of them in US Treasury bills, because we believe that is very, very important. We have a little bit of other assets as part of the reserves, including gold. It's all available in our attestation. We believe that gold is also a very important asset. We started accruing gold a few years ago before, pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic. And that approach to risk management paid off fairly well because, if, although, as you mentioned, we have the vast majority of our T-bills, or basically all of the T-bills, are in short-term maturity, so less than 90 days. You want, as money market funds and other very well-recognized financial instruments, we want to make sure that we keep a small percentage of our reserves in something that could hedge certain volatility events.
Yeah.
Like the 3-month T-bills are very, very solid, right? So they are very, very liquid. On top of that, we have several billions in overnight reverse repos. So if we have a huge redemptions in the tens of millions or billions of dollars, we can fulfill that with a snap of the finger, and we can keep on and going on and pay up to the last dime very, very quickly, right? I think our Lapnik a few days ago spoke about it at the Bitcoin 2024 in a very, very proud way, because we engineered a very strong machine where we have all the reserves to back USDT, plus we have $11.89 billion more that we kept in the company to protect our ecosystem. The reason why I said we were on the mouths of everyone and people were obsessed by our research made us be very aggressive on how much we want to show to the world that all the heroes of finance and all the heroes of crypto that were heroes until 2022, they almost died, or they died through 2022 because they did all the things that accused Tether of. They lent to each other through skinty swear deals. They created the inflated values of tokens and all that. And then we decided that, and in 2022, I'm not sure if you remember, Tether was publicly attacked by short sellers that altogether borrowed tens of billions of USDT from lenders, paying 12% per year, because they thought these guys at Tether will never have more than 10% of liquid reserves. So we are going to short USDT, we are going to close a bank run, and they will go belly up and we will make a lot of money. Instead, we did enormous work to move from the commercial papers that we had in the past, that, by the way, we never had a default, we're short maturity, we're very, very safe. But then we put basically the majority in US T-bills. So we could sustain $7 billion of redemptions that were 10% of our shares in 48 hours. And we could sustain $25 billion of redemptions in pretty much more than 20 days. That was 25% of our reserves, like at peak. So there's no bank that survived to that, right? That's why I like to talk about it, because it was a very stressful moment for us, because, you know that you have the money, you know that you are liquid, but you have to keep going, keep paying out, because you want to show to the world that you are made different. And that's why we're keeping these additional reserves on top of our 100% reserves, like these excess reserves. And then we have Tether investments. So what has been accrued and profited from the company, from the T-bills and the rest that we have throughout the last few years, in part is excess reserves, and in part is in Tether investments. That is a separate subsidiary of our holding group that is doing investments in AI, that is doing investment in biotech, that is supporting great projects like SoulPatch and Keet development and so on, right? So, but we try to be as diligent as possible, right? Last year, 3 banks in the US went belly up: Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate Signature. One of our major competitors almost died for that. We don't want to be anymore in any situation nearby that. And that's why, we are putting part of our research in Bitcoin. I wish we could put more, of course, but being conservative in this moment is the name of the game.
Well, what I find so interesting about that moment that you're talking about in 2022, and why I think you were probably being attacked the way that you were, all these banks and the people that were probably the attackers in this, and I don't know who they were, but for 40 years you've had interest rates just go down, and so the play was to be long with as much duration, treasury duration as possible, because you made a ton of money if you were in long duration issuance. At that moment in 2022, it was kind of like, I think global finance kind of figured out, like, oh no, maybe this bull market we experienced for 40 years is over. And if you have long exposure, you're about to have your face ripped off. And so they might have assumed that you had a lot more long duration on your balance sheet than what you had, or else you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. And yeah, no, and this, I guess this is where the question that I want to go. When I look at how much issuance the U.S. has had to make, or any government at this point, they've had to move from 30-year bonds to really like overnight money. The amazing thing is that you're getting paid the most to take the short end of the curve, which is incredible for you. You have no inflation risk with that, and well, not none, but like basically none, and you're getting paid the most to be there. But for them, for the government's point of view, they really need to be having long-term issuance, and there really needs to be a real market there. And it almost seems like they're going to have to start incorporating Bitcoin or gold or something real or tangible with these long duration issuance for it to be a free and open market and for there actually to be a buyer. Would you agree with that? And what do you think that would have to look like for, Tether here? What are you guys, like the 16th biggest buyer in the world for treasuries at this point, US treasuries at this point, and only growing? What would have to entice you to go further out on the curve? What would they have to do?
So the problem is when going out in the curve is that the stablecoin job is very simple, right? And the most important thing ever is that we need to be able to liquidate our reserves immediately and pay out our users. That's simple, right? So,
so you need liquidity.
Enough, you mentioned, it's liquidity, and we cannot take the risk on who knows what will happen in the next 6, 9, even 12 months, right? So it's very, very risky, even from a geopolitical perspective. Yes, we have what you described is, you said that central banks could have like Bitcoin and gold. That is basically what we are doing also at Tether, right? So we have Bitcoin and gold as well, because it's important. No one can predict the future, but maybe color me pessimistic here, but I don't think we are going towards a nicer period for humanity, right? So there is so much tension. There is so much tension, starting from Europe, very, very high tension, to the US, to everywhere else in the world. Things are not nice. And so I think having an exposure to scarce assets like Bitcoin and gold is the way to go. Definitely, at least will help to protect possible spikes, when it comes to interest rates, or basically downturns when it comes to interest rates and the mark to market of those assets. So we thought it through very well. And look at China. I mean, I was reading today that China announced in May that where they were stopping to buy gold, but actually they showed that they were continuing buying gold, right? So, and many other countries in Asia are buying enormous quantities of gold because everyone is fearful that something is going to happen. So definitely Bitcoin as part of our group is very important. We believe that, of course, there's a way to sustain and support Bitcoin. We are Bitcoiners at heart. We spend lots of time advocating and educating on Bitcoin, but it's also the most intelligent thing you can do with your profits. So with your profits, you should start investing a portion of them into something that can resist to the breath of God. And maybe I'm wrong. We are going to experience that sometimes in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely fascinating. But my takeaway was, I don't really want to touch anything in long duration was kind of your response there. And to be honest with you, why would you ever want to go out on the curve when you're being paid more to be at 3-month money? Like, just doesn't make any sense.
And
And the
look,
liquidity
it's
point that you made.
yeah, and also sometimes people ask me, oh, what you're going to do when interest rates will go back to 2%? Well, first of all, I don't think inflation will go away anytime soon. But even if you assume that case, right, 2% on $114 billion is not bad. You know, we can live with that, right? Or even 1% is good money. So we basically distribute almost nothing to the shareholders of those profits that we made, those $11.8 billion profits that we made, because we believe that the majority of the profits has to stay in the company and support great projects. So that's, for us, I mean, it's great. It's great, period. And it's, even if we start earning a bit less, doesn't matter. We still have enough cash to build crazy stuff, right? I remember when you could build a very good project with $1 million. Since today that you cannot do that anymore, since that unless you are worth $100 million, you are nobody. But, back in the time, and Matthias remembers that, $1 million to develop something were already good money. But, jokes aside, we have enough, fuel in the tank to build all the crazy things that we want for the longest time we want. And that's why we are very, very, very concerned.
To your point, one of the things that I think is shifting in business is just the focus on the income statement versus the focus on the balance sheet. For years, it's all been about, I mean, it's still super important. You gotta have a bottom line, right? But I think for some of these companies, MicroStrategy is a glaring example of this. A company that has focused about the balance sheet and having something that is primed for what I think is a very long macro trend of interest rates going higher and inflation going higher, like you said. Even if interest rates would be manipulated down to 1%, or they actually go back down to 1%, and you're only banging out $1 billion a year. I say only. I think your Bitcoin position on your balance sheet, the next question will be, well, where's Bitcoin at if we're talking 3 or 4 years from now and interest rates are at 1%? Because if you've got, I think you said a 15%, was that correct? 15% position in Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's at 200,000, well, your financial position has gone kind of gangbusters for how much you own. It's gone up a lot.
Just to say, so give or take, I mean, I don't have the last numbers with me, but give or take, we own around 80,000 Bitcoin. It's not bad. So, I mean, we can definitely hedge any sort of change in profitability of the company. I think that if interest rates will go down, it's likely that we're going to see Bitcoin going up very, very quickly.
Yes. Amazing. All right. So Paolo, I could talk to you literally for like the rest of the day on this particular topic, but we also want to cover some other stuff. And from an engineering standpoint, I know, Mathias, you're very excited to get into this, and I'm excited to get into this.
I love hearing about Tether, and I can hear about it all day.
Okay. So this is the stat I want to throw out for people to wrap their head around the magnitude of what you guys are working on here. And if you didn't catch it earlier, Paolo was saying that with the profits that Tether has created, they have I think it's a fully owned operational subsidiary that is focusing on R&D development on emerging technologies that they think are important. One of them being this Pear initiative. And okay, so listen to this stat: Telegram. Okay, everybody's familiar with Telegram or Signal or whatever, but for Telegram, they have $700 million annualized in expenses for their servers that they run. Okay, almost $1 billion to just pay for all the servers and the processing and the whole bit of it. Okay, what these guys are building is a zero cost infrastructure, peer-to-peer application system that you could basically create an app on their app store, a Telegram-like app, and they have this already. You guys have built Keet, correct?
Mhm.
And I've used this with friends and tested it out. And it's the same exact thing happening. Maybe the UX isn't as good as Telegram yet, but they're doing this with no servers in the background. So help us wrap our head around how in the world something like that is even possible.
So first of all, I've been working with computers for the last 20 years of my almost 40-year-old experience. And from the very get-go, I've been interested in peer-to-peer technology and how we can utilize all this technology we have already out there instead of actually adding tons more to the stack. So like we all have very, very powerful computers. We all have very, very powerful phones. And a lot of us have very powerful internet. Most people have internet in some way or another. Now we have mobile internet also, which is, so we have it in most of the places. And yet it's still really, really complicated to make applications that talk to each other without putting in tons of money into servers and building up big data structures. And that's like why that stat you mentioned created a lot of emotion in me, because there's more computing out there than ever, but still we're paying more and more money to have things. And I think in the last many years, that's been when I started out and we talked about raising money before, the first money I raised was a check for $20,000 to build like my first thing, and that lasted me 1 year, I remember. $20,000 today, you can't get really far on if you have to pay infrastructure. These costs have just gone up, even though they told us they were going to go down. That's because as they have gone a little bit down, usage has gone up tremendously. So it's like no rocket science. So, I've always been interested in how we can just use technology, because all the technology is out there, and make technology that can solve these problems, so we can just utilize the stuff we have and then make powerful apps that basically run for free, and we can focus on a lot of other stuff, like making great apps. And something me and Paolo have discussed in length in the past. Also, we made tons of projects in the past, and we decided to get serious years ago about turning this into an application framework. So we took a lot of technology we already built, packaged it up into this Pear platform that allows developers to just very easily make these kind of applications that are really powerful. No servers, just connects people, make like nice looking mobile apps, desktop apps, and make them really fast. And we made Keet on top of this. Also, when we started out as a flagship product to kind of showcase how you can do this, like you're saying, it's a beta product, so we're always iterating it. We're doing a really, really big push right now on performance and stability, because we're moving really fast, and sometimes when you move really fast, the inverter gets unfolded at the end there. But that's been a really great journey for us to show how you can actually make this stuff without having any servers. And I think, even though our current products is, like I said, the beta is a bit early, like you said, it's sometimes a little bit rough on the UX. It's still, every time I use it, there's this moment where I'm like, start to realize, actually, there's, we're not paying for anything here. Like, we're not having any servers. Yet it still runs. Yet we can still text. I can send stuff to my wife. Big rooms.
Mathias, this is the part that I'm so blown away with, is having used Keet, the video on Keet. I swear to you folks, like, the video is better than this Zoom call we're having right now. And
that's because the Zoom call they have to pay for, right? Like, there's somebody somewhere that has to pay for that band.
But I guess technologically, I'm trying to understand how that's possible, that my video feed is clearer. I did a half-hour call before we did this, and we used Keet, and there wasn't a single lag on the audio or the video. It was crystal clear. I just don't know how, because I think a person would look at this and just say, well, if there's not some type of centralized server that they're running this through, where they're managing the bandwidth and whatnot, that if you would decentralize this and run it scatter it across like all these different computers, that there would be issues, or the performance would be degraded for the increased decentralization of and it's not. It was literally the opposite. And so as an engineer, I'm looking at things and I'm saying the trade-off should be worse performance for this decentralization that you're getting out of spreading the servers out. But that wasn't the case. That's what's so weird.
And Yeah, and I can understand. And it's also, still weird to me sometimes, like I said, when we use it, because it's like, it's a bunch of really hard problems. We spend a lot of time solving these like to a degree. But also, if you think about it, any video call, like what we're having here, should
Yeah.
just be limited by how fast you can send me data and how fast I can receive it. You're already paying your monthly bill. I'm already paying my monthly bill. The only body that has to pay extra bills is the meter internet between us when it goes to a server. As soon as you take that one away, even though that's a hard problem, and like I said, something we worked on for many years, we're only now getting at the point where it's like really, really, really good. That's just, take away the middleman. It's just a matter of just using that connection, and you'd be surprised how little data you actually need to send really good quality. And the only reason why centralized services don't do it is because, you increase 10% of the quality and assume their revenue or profit graph, gets really messed up, right? And
so you're basically taking the limiter out because they're trying to make money and in one of their sole costs are the servers. They're basically limiting the bandwidth that they're feeding. But with this, it's somewhat uncapped.
Yeah, we don't like, it's like, we want just to have the best experience possible and get as high quality as possible. And I think that's like so we talked a lot about, like, with the Tether, so Paolo talked a lot about, like, being conservative and being steady. For us, it's all about being progressive and like, trying to break the status quo and like kind of like go back to a future where we're just utilizing the resources we have because we have a ton and delivering crazy good system. And I also think that the one thing, going back to the previous conversation, that's really worth thinking about with peer-to-peer is, like, in a volatile world where things move fast, and having a reliance on apps that use data centers and connections throughout the world, I think is going to be a big concern going forward. And I think peer-to-peer is the only way we can solve this. Like, there's, when data is like moving from our computers to various regions in the world, first of all, like, the legalese of that is always tricky. But also just there's very few cables that needs to be cut to stop that stop that transfer.
I want to just preface. Yeah. Go ahead, Paolo.
So just I wanted to, because before you mentioned from the technological point of view, how could be counterintuitive that the centralized system is more efficient than a centralized system. The reality is that Keet is peer-to-peer, that is decentralized, but we are today used to the concept of decentralized as if everything was a blockchain. So you would need a consensus. You don't have consensus in Keet. It is bringing the old good point-to-point connectivity. Internet was built on a point-to-point connectivity, right? Every computer, when you connect to internet, has an IP address. It's like your home address. So if I want to send you a mail, right, a letter, a physical letter, I will go to my post office and there will be a routing of that letter that will deliver it to your house. And internet was built in a very, very similar way, right? So you had this routing systems that will take the packets that I want to send and deliver them to you. But over the years, we put in the middle data centers, because data centers are owned by big tech companies that can, if they are in the middle, they get access to our data.
Yep.
So actually data centers are helpful for a few things like backups and data availability and so on. But for connectivity, they're not very helpful, right? And it could be very rarely helpful, but in most of the part are not necessary. So we are used to think, stuff will not work if there is no cloud or there is no server in the middle. That is not true. That infrastructure is also an enormous burden to humanity. You think about this, right? So basically, imagine that I live in Rome. My mother lives in Rome. We are living 1 kilometer apart. Most of the people on Earth talk to other people that are living in the same area for most of the time, right? So you are more used to talk to people living in the same area for a good portion of your time, or in the same country, maybe. But if you live in Rome, every single chat, text message, data packet of a call has to travel 5,000 miles to Frankfurt to go back to Rome. That's why Keet is better, because governments spend enormous amount of money in building internet infrastructure that is only servicing connectivity that is useless, that is waste, because you don't need to transfer this data across the world to go back to the just 1 kilometer away. There is no point for that. Imagine we keep improving the internet cables, redundancy. I mean, France and a big, just yesterday or for someone cut, internet lines in France to protest against the Olympics, and half of Europe had problems because everyone is basically going and using these centralized services. But internet was not built like that. It was built to be resilient, was actually a military project, started as a military project, was built to be resilient. And yet we managed to centralize internet by 70% in the hands of 3 companies. So that's what Keet and Hole Punch sold for.
I love it. And just FYI, people that are watching the video here, they might be wondering why we're not using it. So very early days, there's no record button associated with it on the desktop version that I'm running this on my Mac computer yet. My understanding is that that's in the works. But when I was trying to video capture the screen, I was going to use it and then I was going to video capture my screen. The video capturing was putting like this lag or this delay into the video after, I looked at the recording and I was like, I don't want to use this because it's just not going to be representative of how it's actually performing, which is just totally seamless. So I would highly encourage people, you can just download this. You can go to the App Store, download Keet. You're going to have a friend to also do it so you can test it out. But I think when you do it, I know I did this with Lynn Alden, James Lavish. We kind of tested it out. And all of us were just like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe how clear and seamless this is. Now, the part that I really want to get into is from a security standpoint. Would you argue that you're getting better security than, call it a Signal or a Telegram that's optimized for security? I know they have like 2 different settings, an encrypted level of it, because what I hear is that this should be a better way from a security standpoint if you don't have a centralized server.
One of the most common questions I get asked from family and friends is, Preston, where do you personally buy your Bitcoin from? And the answer is really simple. I buy it on river.com. Not only can you easily buy Bitcoin with 0 fees on recurring orders, you can have peace of mind knowing Bitcoin on River is held 1-to-1 in multi-sig cold storage, all while being fully licensed and regulated in the United States. Plus, their relationship managers are US-based and available by phone for you or your business. Additionally, River has built their own infrastructure from the ground up, which means they don't rely on third parties to function like other Bitcoin exchanges. River also just created a new feature not found anywhere else called River Link. It allows you to send Bitcoin over a text message to easily orange pill your family, pay a friend for dinner, or send a gift. There's a new standard for investing in Bitcoin, and River is setting it. Go to river.com/fundamentals and get up to $100 free when you sign up and buy Bitcoin. That's river.com/fundamentals. In a world where convenience often compromises security, many investors settle for solutions that do not fully meet the demands of Bitcoin security. That's where the Bitcoin Way comes in. Offering a personalized white glove service, they will guide you through every step of the way to achieve full self-custody, ensuring you adhere to the strictest self-custody standards. Their experienced team helps establish robust security practices that cover all aspects of self-custody, cybersecurity, and privacy. Their ultimate goal? To empower you to become fully sovereign. Beyond securing your Bitcoin, they also offer services such as inheritance planning, Plan B strategies, assisting in relocating to Bitcoin-friendly locations to further enhance your sovereignty, and much, much more. Take the first step to true financial independence. Visit thebitcoinway.com/TIP to schedule your free consultation call. Don't delay in securing your generational wealth the right way. Opt in for security over convenience and protect your future. Your family line will thank you.
Well, so first of all, when you make a peer-to-peer application, security is not optional. It's not something we add in. We don't have like a secure mode and an unsecure mode, because that's the whole system in a peer-to-peer system. Because when you're talking to other peers, there's a lot of, who are you talking to? How can I secure that? So security is the name of the game. And so it's secure by default. Everything is end-to-end encrypted. And there's a lot of defense in that way where, there's no like single place that holds all the data. Even if it's encrypted, people can just get to. It's all spread out. And I think that's one of the things you really, really need to think about when you think about P2P apps, that like it has to be, because that's the whole foundation of it to work. And it's all built with really modern encryption primitives. It's all open source. All our primitives open source, very vetted. And since this is all part of peer-to-peer stack, that means that software-wise, it's kind of like an engine that just handles all the security for us. That's then deployed actually on phones, because it's peer-to-peer, so your phone is very powerful in that way. And that handles all these security for us. We made this engineering for us. And makes it like secure per default and extremely private per default, because there's like very little stuff leaving your phone to other than the people you're chatting with. And also makes it extremely resilient, because we always say this, like one of our prime objectives is that we should be able to go out of business tomorrow and like everything should still work, because there shouldn't be any reliance on us, other than obviously like the updates will take a little bit longer if they're not getting paid. And that's like something gets put into the protocol per default. And I think any other model than peer-to-peer, although you can do like encrypted stuff, and a lot of people are doing encrypted stuff and et cetera, just has inherent difficulties compared to peer-to-peer, because you tend to, first of all, you need to monetize often the data. And so you need to have loopholes. That's why even apps like WhatsApp are like, end-to-end encrypted, but also sometimes more encrypted than other times, which is always a little bit confusing to read, because they still want to have like avenues of making money on their data, because they need to pay really, really big bills, like we talked about in the past. And I think that's one of those things where since we don't have any cost, and since we have technology that can just scale this forward, we can go in from the beginning. We did that from the beginning. It's one of the first meetings we had when we talked about making this, and saying, you know what, it's just, we want to put ourselves in a way technologically we can't even do that. And so it's like, it's fully private. We can't see any of it. And we're never going to be able to monetize off it, even if we wanted to, that data, because we don't know what's going on. And I think that's really, really essential. And I think I think that's the only way you can make apps today, especially communication apps today. Like it has to be that level of privacy. And I think, another thing just to add on that, I think what that makes it for me really cool is that peer-to-peer that hides all that stuff and doesn't make it like a super, oh my God, it's like private app. Still an app I can use with my parents, because it's all just in technology. That's really essential.
One of the things you
the
guys
best
have
way is not having people's data.
Yeah. Amen, Paul. On the website, it says that this is all open source. When I was talking with some folks on Twitter, I saw a few people kind of throwing rocks and saying it's not completely open source. I can't audit the code base, blah blah blah. Like, I'm curious your take on this idea that which is listed on the site, that it's completely open source. But I'm hearing rumblings that some people are saying they can't audit it.
Well, like we have an app, right? And the app is an artifact you deliver to the app stores, and we're under also rules on how that works. Like you're never going to be able to compile something and put it yourself and put it on your IRS phone. That's at least like, unless you only want to have 5 users. Then there's always going to be like artifacts we built. The entire engine, which is 99 point. I used to say 99%, and now it's probably like 99.9%, because we just want more stuff is rolling into the engine. It's completely permissive open source. It's all on our GitHub. We push that daily. We discuss that daily. We get pull requests. We are very open about it. We talk to people on Keet about it. And then we have the app shell itself that's not currently open. But that's just like the UI engine and very little stuff there. And we are very, very, very committed to make sure that the engine is completely open source and very reviewable. And we encourage everybody to come in and review and give them feedback, because that's where all the peer-to-peer stuff runs. And we want to make an engine that can run anywhere, that can be ordered by anywhere, that is open source. And we want to make sure that you can make any kind of app you want on top, and even apps that work on different environments and whatever context you want to deploy them in, whether those are open source or not open source.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, it's all open source except for where the user interface portion of the code.
More or less. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was checking the website. I don't think we on the Keet website we say
we don't say
fully open
we only say the platform.
whole bunch.
Okay.
Matthias, how many open source projects we have under the whole punch page?
Let me check, but I think it's like
Hundreds, right?
couple hundred. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the whole punch team
500.
created 500 open source repositories. 500, right? Open source repositories containing all the cryptography, all the networking code. Basically, they wrote BitTorrent protocol on steroids from scratch, made it public, added cryptography layer, added, these all punching techniques, very, very complex, all data replication, everything is, it's available to the public. There's, I think, almost no company that was able to open source 500 repositories. And this is just the beginning. Very, very complex stuff that companies would keep for themselves. It's open source. We took for the moment, right, the decision of not open sourcing just the UI for the reason that we believe that Keet is one of the most groundbreaking applications that us as humans, we could build, because it could actually survive to the worst catastrophes in the world. One thing we didn't want to,
when you say that, Paolo, sorry to interrupt you. When you say that, you're basically saying we get an internet service provider that's attacked by a government and they're trying to prevent speech or video from happening within, call it, you name it, country. You still are able to communicate even despite that internet service provider being centralized and going down. Is that kind of where you're
exactly?
Okay.
It's not blockable.
Yeah.
It's not blockable because the thing with all the other communication services, in part also Nostr, but in general, is that there is a Nostr is better, of course. But imagine like with WhatsApp and the other communication services, governments that don't want communications to happen can identify the IP addresses of the data centers and just ban those and nothing will happen. With Nostr is a little bit better because you have maybe, let's say, imagine 10 million users and you have 10,000 relays, but it's still, could imagine like a square root of all the users is the number of relays. Imagine this formula in general, right? But it's still limited. With Keet, you have the number of, you are your own relay. So the number of relays is equal to the number of users. So there is no way to stop it. Not for us, not for everyone, for anyone. So what we didn't want to do or to see is someone taking the Keet UI that anyone can replicate based on all the 500 repositories that we published and add a coin on top of it.
So that's a meaty comment. So let's dig into that. Go ahead. Come on, Paolo. Give us the goods. What are you doing here?
I mean, we believe that it's so important and so crucial that this technology gets the recognition and gets the proper good care that it needs in order to not be dismissed as, oh, it's just yet another communication system where, we put the mobile coin. Sorry, I love the Signal, but, I couldn't stand to the choice of putting mobile coin on top of it. So we want to have Bitcoin integrated. We want to have Lightning. We want to have stablecoins integrated. We want to do it everything the right time. And if someone can the UI, if you hire 4 developers, 5 developers, 6 developers, you can build a UI that is exactly like Keet, right? Everything is out there, is open. But just the fact that we keep the UI closed will slow down someone that could actually take it and add like some dog or cat with a hat in Keet and make it the official currency. That would be diminishing the importance of the project. So not everyone likes this decision, but to us is very, very important because we do care about this becoming one of the most or best communication systems for humanity.
So, and correct, stop me if I'm jumping, in a direction that this just isn't true. Today, Tether is primarily issued on Tron. Is that correct? Like 75% of Tether is issued on Tron, 20%
65, I would say 60, 60%.
The rest, the remainder is mostly ETH, a little bit on Solana. What you just said with respect to this hole punch technology and what you guys are building, is this your attempt at firing them as the protocol level and you basically issuing Tether on your protocol that is built on Sounder tech? Am I understanding that correctly, or am I reading into this too much? Help me understand what it is exactly what you're saying here.
Well, it's actually is more.
Your smile's telling me I'm close. Your smile just told me I'm getting close.
It's also a very complex issue.
Yeah, it's slightly more complex in the sense that you are on cap. So first of all, USDT is agnostic, right? So what I say sometimes, I mean, for me, USDT is the digital dollar, and someone could call it probably the most used altcoin or Bitcoin as well, right? So it's not Bitcoin. So anything is not Bitcoin could be considered Bitcoin. So actually for USDT, every single blockchain is a transport layer. So it doesn't matter much because it's a centralized stablecoin, right?
Yeah.
I never wanted to make think people that it's similar to Bitcoin. Is we have to engage with banks. We keep our money in custodians, and so we have to abide to the banking rules. Now, we thought and we discussed, and we have already a project plan with Mathias also to build a protocol and payment protocol based on the same technology that powers Keet and hole punch. So that eventually will come. But again, we want to do it in a way that is fair, right? There will be no token issued for that, right? No additional token. It's like peer-to-peer ledger technology that anyway, if you start from one assumption that everything that is not Bitcoin is anyway or inherently centralized, that I think is a fair assumption also for many coins around there, then you can forget about many of the constructs that many blockchains have, because in the end, you can reach if you assume that there is in the end a centralized issuer or a centralized controller. Remember the Ethereum hard fork in 2016, right?
Yeah.
Or things like that. So it means to me that many of the complexities that we are creating around blockchains are pretty much useless, because if you use a blockchain that has all the meme tokens are created by a centralized issuer, doesn't mean anything that is runs on a distributed ledger is useless. So if you start with that assumption, you can create very, very, very efficient protocols that can scale to hundreds of thousands or millions and millions of transactions per second, because they're actually peer-to-peer and they don't rely on a global share state like blockchains. So that is, of course, in the future. Is a paper that we released some time ago, I think almost 2 years ago or 1 year and a half ago, Mathias, myself. But it's something that definitely is in our mind. But in this moment, although we like about thinking, we really like about thinking about money, about USDT, about Bitcoin and so on, in this moment, we have Bitcoin that is the most resilient currency in the world that can resist to the wrath of God, that can resist to apocalypse. But we don't have the equal when it comes to communication. For us, hole punch protocol is that equal, and Keet has the chance to become the communication platform for the apocalypse. And we don't want to screw it up. Everyone can, like with Nostr, you have open source clients and closed source clients. That's the beauty of technology, right? So over time, there will be more clients for Keet and hole punch. In this moment, we want just to measure our approach to releasing what we think is best for the community.
How do you guys think about? Because I know you have a hole punch Pear. And if people want to check this out, you can go to pear.io. You're developing an app store for decentralized applications that are running on this hole punch technology. How do you think through the issue that everybody basically has an Apple device or they have a Google device, and they have to go through the Google Play Store, or they have to go through the Apple, App Store? How do you think about that centralization with respect to what you guys are building? Are you looking at going into the hardware side so that you can start from the ground up to try to ensure this true decentralization across hardware through the whole software stack?
Yeah, the website is Pear.com. I think, I don't know if we own Pear.io, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just to,
Okay. We'll have the link in the show notes for folks.
to answer your question. And I think we talked about this publicly also before. We're very interested in hardware. We're very interested. I think, thinking about phones and thinking about hardware is really interesting to me. I think that's where I personally come to realize this too late, even as a normal person. That's where we really got this messed up in terms of being locked in as consumers. They bought really powerful devices that we're not really allowed to use. They're under a ton of restrictions. It's a really, really hard market to enter for anybody because it's hardware, it's hard. I think that's where, and it's a perfect device of peer-to-peer, which is even more frustrating because it's a device you have on you all the time. It has a radio, so you can communicate with the world. It has really good batteries. It's very powerful, and it has this ability to run in the background. And all that is locked away from you. Obviously, we worked around in our stack because we run on Android, iOS at the moment. We run well, but we could run so much better on our if we had those restrictions. So that's something we're very seriously looking into, and that's something I'm sure you'll hear going on in the future. So I think that's the true unlock for peer-to-peer going forward. And then I think, especially for peer-to-peer, people tend to think about peer-to-peer because we talk about things like encryption and big things. But it's actually just also protocols that are really, really good for low-power devices because it's protocols where you don't have to be online all the time. Pretty, slow devices because they just have to, they're already engineered to get as little data as possible from the network. So you can engineer them to be really friendly on your data plan if you have not that good of a data plan. So I think, and I hope we'll see a return in the future also to cheaper and lower power devices where these things really shine. And that's definitely something we're talking about.
Guys, I'll tell you what, such a fascinating discussion. I would love to continue this in a couple months or quarters just to kind of keep the conversation going. But thank you guys so much for your time and coming on and sharing these amazing things that you're working on. And it was just such a blast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt Preston.
If you want to trust the system, that's what Bitcoin's for. I mean, that's why it's a state change. It's this unbelievable tool that really empowers people to have trustless settlement without a trusted third party. I think the thing that people miss about this, though, of course, is that this also empowers the baddies or the US government or the private sector ghouls that have, run crony capitalism for the last 50 years plus or whatever, right? So I think that this idea that Bitcoin just eliminates corruption is just ridiculous. Of course not. There can be corruption in a Bitcoin system.